Listen, everyone here is on pins and needles as we follow Trotz Watch, as it's known here in Winnipeg, about the future of Barry Trotz. I wanted to ask you about coaching searches overall. But first up, are you hearing anything about Barry? It does sound like there's plenty of teams that are interested in the Dauphin Natives' services for next season as their head coach.
As there should be, Andrew. He's an excellent coach. And the availability of a couple of people right now, I think the uniqueness of having, right now we have 6 openings. And as well, there's 2 interim jobs that haven't been technically filled yet. One, just as of last night with Andrew Brunette, that's still the interim basis. And of course, nothing is confirmed yet with Martin St. Louis. Now, we all assume he's going back to Montreal, but the interim tag is still hanging on that one. It's the uniqueness of the jobs opened right now and of the quality of candidates available. And you have 6 openings. Besides the 2 interim spots I chatted about, you have 6 openings right now. And openings that, not too long you would have said, now, wait a second, Vegas, Chicago, Winnipeg, Philadelphia, who am I missing here? Dallas.
Yeah, Detroit.
Detroit are all going to be open right now. And so you don't know, Lou Lamoriello acts right away and he fills it with Lane Lambert, who I think is an excellent choice and was always on my short list in my top left drawer. And I always kept a list. When I was a scout, I kept a list. And when I was in the management business, I kept a list. Because if I saw someone that intrigued me in the American League, as both Lane Lambert and Dean Evison did, I'd put them on my list. And when I had a job to fill in the American League, when I was, running the Toronto Marlies, I went to that list and I reached out to a number of people that had just simply intrigued me by watching them. And I always watch a bench to see what's going on. I always sit across them and always watch it. But right now, you've got names like Barry Trotz and Peter DeBoer and Mike Babcock's still out there somewhere, Andrew. And you've got all these guys, but you've got excellent guys who've been head coaches. And a name I heard recently, tied to Winnipeg is Scotty Arneal, who I played with in Boston and think very highly of. And so maybe they get an opportunity at some point. The fit isn't exactly right. They move back into an associate or an assistant coach's role. And they excel in that again and maybe are more ready the second time around. And when I think of more ready the second time around, I think of Bruce Cassidy, who had an opportunity in Washington at a very young age, went back to the American League, ground through it again, and his second time around in Boston has been terrific. And so with so many candidates available, and now you're wondering why they're waiting. Are they waiting for someone else they might think might be available after the second round? If something happens through these 2 rounds, are conversations going to be had with maybe an associate or an assistant who's still involved in playing right now on one of the teams, and they might have to wait till they're done? So a lot of moving parts on both sides, and also the veteran nature of the GMs who are conducting these searches, Jimmy Neal and Kevin Cheveldayoff and Stevie Yzerman. And you've got some guys conducting, but you've also got some young guys like Kyle Davidson in Chicago conducting the searches. So, boy, there's a lot of factors that go into this, Andrew. It's not as simple as, there's a job opening, there's a candidate, let's fill it.
Well, and let's, because one of the things that, our colleague Pierre Lebrun reported was that, we know people are going to have fat checks for Barry Trotz. He's going to be getting paid and he'll be paid well wherever he goes. That the market will dictate that. But one of the things Pierre has reported, and we're going to talk to Jeff Hamilton about this a little later on, is that Barry Trotz has indicated to teams that he would like to have a path into management. And it does seem, when you compare the other spots, that Winnipeg maybe has a unique opportunity in that respect that maybe doesn't exist in some of the other places. But let me put this to you, Poulin, because you've been on, in the hockey operations front office side of things and have gone through hiring coaches. What normally happens? What's normally involved in the coaching interview process? And how might it be different for a guy like Barry Trotz with half the league interested in getting his services?
And that is a great question. I've been on the other side of it. I've been on both sides of it. I've been on a side interviewing for jobs. I've also been on the side in a very unique way, Andrew, of interviewing for jobs when I really didn't want another job. And when I was the head coach at Notre Dame, I had some rather remarkable opportunities to leave the college game and go into the pro ranks. And I went through the process at the encouragement of my agent, and it was as much to know fully that I wanted to stay where I was. I thought I did, but he said, but you got to be sure. If you're that sure you're going to stay at Notre Dame, and I did stay for 10 years, then be sure of it. And a lot of these opportunities came early in my tenure there in the second and third and fourth years, when I was a rising coach and things were going well. And it was whether I wanted to go to the pro game. But I think from a standpoint of how the interview process goes, it depends on how well you know the person involved. I mean, a couple I was involved with when I was asked to interview for a job were people I knew really well. Well, that changes the texture of an interview. If you know somebody really well, the first hour isn't going to be background. And I mean, they know your kids, they know your situation, they know everything about you. It's not going to be, those things are going to be eliminated. But, in some instances, you don't know the person personally, and you don't know exactly what that may entail in terms of, what the depth of the job is, what it's going to involve. But I think the part about Barry wanting to get into management is very intriguing. There was a day when there was the title called coach and general manager. It's hard to believe now that a guy did both those jobs, like a Pat Quinn, because of how much is involved and the depth of what's involved in each job. But I think a communication, it could be as simple as the communication with the general manager to ensure that you have an input into who is brought in because you're going to be the one that coaches them. And I think that issue in itself is really key in terms of knowing that communication level is going to be there the entire time. So I think that factor really does work towards, where Barry may be in this process.
If you do have Barry on speed dial, send him a text. Let him know it's time to come home, Dave. It would make a lot of people very, very happy here in Manitoba.
I was the one that was selling Dauphin as a suburb.
That's right. Hey, you can have the whole damn province if he comes
the
back. It'll
home
be
game, Barry.
Trotz territory here, the province of Manitoba. If we can get it done.
Yeah, Andrew, to your point, a lot of those factors do go in. It's a family decision in a lot of ways. Like, part of me and why I stayed at Notre Dame as long as I did was I wanted my kids to get through high school. And I wanted them to get right through in one city. I didn't want them to have to move. So how do those factors weigh in depending on where a coach is in his own family and life? And because so much burden is put on the family and having to move and all those different things, hey, it's a factor in that for sure.